Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Saturday, August 20th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Helps us out a ton. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Now, if you're looking for my MLB best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. I'm always running my $15 MLB best bets. You can check that out at Pick Dawgz Premium. And also, make sure to use the code AUG15, that's AUG15, to save 15% at checkout. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Saturday, August 20th. First up, we see a doubleheader between the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, like I've mentioned plenty of times in the rundown before, these doubleheader games a little tricky to go over just because the information can certainly change from the night before to the day of, and even from game 1 to game 2 in terms of like lineup availability. So, we'll have to just tread lightly with these games until we get some definitive information. Right now, we should see David Peterson and Zach Wheeler as the starters for Game 1. Like I said, that could certainly change. And then in Game 2, Bailey Falter, the only announced starter for Philadelphia. The Mets are still waiting for their announcement. But David Peterson's back in the rotation as Taijuan Walker and Carlos Carrasco dealt with some injuries. So, Peterson's been pitching well as a starting pitcher for New York this year. Struggled out of the bullpen when he needed to be there, but the control issues always concern me. Home runs and walks have been an issue for Peterson in his career thus far. Even though his strikeout rate's pretty good this season, the Phillies do hit lefties pretty darn well. And at home, I think the Phillies will get to Peterson early on. I'm going to take the Phillies in Game 1. Zach Wheeler has been so strong at home this season. An ERA at 1.57 at Citizens Bank Park on the year. 75 strikeouts in 68 2/3 innings. A 6-2 home record. So I like Wheeler and the Phillies in Game 1. But I do think this will be a split doubleheader. I like the Mets to win Game 2. Bailey Falter is a lefty, and at the beginning of the year, the Mets weren't hitting left-handed pitching very well, but that they have definitely improved their numbers against lefties offensively. And Falter, a 5.89 ERA at home this year, 0-2 record there. He's given up a lot of home runs, at least one home run in 4 of his last 5 starts, and 4 home runs combined in his last 2 outings. And that was against the Cubs and the Pirates, 2 of the weaker lineups in the National League. So I think the Mets can get to Falter in Game 2 and win it outright on the road. So give me the Phillies in Game 1 and the Mets in Game 2. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Detroit Tigers. Reed Detmers and Tyler Alexander are your projected starters, so a pair of lefties going at it in this one. Now, I've been pretty critical about the Los Angeles Angels in terms of their offense against lefties. Overall this year, it has not been good, but I will say in the last 30 days, hasn't been too bad. And when I say that, I say it pretty lightly. They're still 26th in team OPS against lefties in the last month. However, they have improved their power numbers. They're ranked 11th in the league in isolated power. That is pretty impressive. When you look at the Detroit Tigers in the last month against lefties, they're 18th in WRC+, so they're below average offensively themselves against lefties, and I do trust Reed Detmers a lot more than Tyler Alexander. I think there's some regression to worry about in Alexander's game, and when you look at Reed Detmers, since he was brought down to the minor leagues after he had struggled after his no-hitter, he threw a no-hitter earlier this year, he struggled after that, and then they sent him down to the minor leagues. He came back up not too long after that, and he has been outstanding ever since that promotion back to the majors. He's faced the Orioles, the Astros, the Braves, Rangers, Mariners, and Twins. So all basically pretty good lineups against lefties, and he hasn't given up more than 2 earned runs in any of those starts. He's been striking out batters left and right. He's got 16 strikeouts through 12 innings here in the month of August alone, going 12 innings, only giving up 3 earned runs against the Mariners and Twins. Both of those Angels wins outright, and in the last 4 starts, 3 of the last 4 outright winners for the Angels against the Astros, Mariners, and Twins. So some big teams that they're taking down. Now you're facing one of the weaker teams in baseball in the Detroit Tigers. I think the Angels is a good spot for them. I'm going to take LA here on the money line. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Chicago Cubs. This is going to be an afternoon game, 2:20 Eastern on Fox Sports 1, so a national television game. Freddie Peralta and Marcus Stroman. Pretty good pitching matchup in my opinion, but I do like Marcus Stroman and the Cubs in this spot as the home dog. I'll take him plus the 1.5 runs here on the run line. Freddie Peralta hasn't been able to pitch too deep into games as he's trying to get back to form after his injury. He's missed a good amount of this season due to that injury. He's made 3 starts since the injury. He's only gone 3 2/3 innings, 5 innings, and then 4 innings. Given up some home runs, at least 1 homer in each of his last 2, giving up some walks, and the big concern for me is he's not striking out as many batters. He only had 3 Ks in 3 2 against the Pirates, and that's a lineup that strikes out left and right. The Rays in 5 innings, only 4 strikeouts. Another lineup that had issues with strikeouts, only 3 Ks against the Dodgers through 4 innings. So if Peralta's not missing bats, and he's still giving up the home runs and walks. That's where I start to get concerned. And Marcus Stroman's been very good in the second half of the year. He struggled very much so at the beginning of the season with the Cubs, but he's learned to pitch a lot better. Now, at Wrigley Field, his numbers aren't great, but he hasn't had a home start. In his last 5 starts, only one of them have been at home. So I do think that as he starts to get more work at Wrigley Field, those numbers will sharpen up a bit, and I think he pitches well enough here for the Cubs to stay competitive in this game. I'm going to take the Chicago Cubs here, plus the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Michael Wacha and Kyle Bradish are your starters. Now, Michael Wacha seems to have owned the Yankees. In recent years, he's really dominated against that Yankee lineup, and that was his first start back from being injured. His last start was June 28th. He faced the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. 7 innings, no earned runs, and 9 strikeouts. That's the big shocker for me. Wacha's not really known to be a strikeout guy, but he was missing bats in that game in a 3-0 shutout victory. And, you know, I do think Wacha will pitch pretty well in this spot. I still think the Orioles would be the side I would lean towards, as I do trust their offense and their bullpen a little bit more than the Red Sox right now. But, you know, Kyle Bradish, a 6.38 ERA. To me, he is not pitching nearly as bad as those numbers look. His xFIP is far, far lower. He's able to strike out batters, and although he's had some issues with the home runs and walks, the Boston Red Sox lineup against right-handed pitching in the last month or so hasn't been very good. So I think Bradish can compete in this start. I think both pitchers have quality outings here. I think the Orioles bullpen has shown it is very, very tough to beat at Camden Yards. On the road, some dicey numbers, but at Camden Yards, it's been very dominant this season. I think we see a low-scoring game. Like I mentioned, I lean towards the Orioles, but I like the under in this Red Sox-Orioles matchup. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see Drew Rasmussen and Kris Bubic as your starters. Now, similar to the last game, I do see another low-scoring contest. In this one, we see a low total for this game, and I do think it makes sense. When you look at the Rays, they're going to be facing Kris Bubic, a lefty, and they have just not done much against left-handed pitching in the last month or so. When you look at their numbers, team OPS-wise, the Rays are ranked 29th in the league, just a little bit better than their cross-state rivals in the Miami Marlins. 28th in isolated power. The strikeout rate through the roof at 28.3%. That's 5th highest in baseball. So Kris Bubic may not be the strongest lefty out there, but I will say he's pitching much better in the last, I would say, 2 months than he did at the beginning of the season. And last start wasn't his best, but he gave up 4 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings, but he still had 7 strikeouts. And like I mentioned, that high K rate for Tampa Bay is something to be concerned about. And that wasn't a 4-2 low-scoring under game against the Twins that Bubic had. I think we see a similar scoreline here. I think Drew Rasmussen was just 3 outs away from a perfect game against a pretty good Orioles lineup. And at home this year, he's 4-1 with a 1.87 ERA. The Royals' numbers against right-handed pitching haven't been great, so I think Rasmussen, this outing, this spot sets him up for another good start. And I think both pitchers have a pretty good day, and I think both lineups kind of quiet for the most part. So I like the under. I lean towards the Rays here, but at that minus 200 plus price, when they can't hit lefties, it's really tough to take them. So give me the under in this Royals-Rays matchup. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians. We're going to see Johnny Cueto and Shane Bieber as your starters. Really great pitching matchup and another fun matchup to watch here on Saturday with these two teams going for the AL Central title. Now, Johnny Cueto and Shane Bieber are very different pitchers, I would say. They're kind of opposite pitchers. You look at Johnny Cueto, he's more of a pitch-to-contact guy. He's only got 71 strikeouts in 110 innings. Now, 11 home runs is a little bit higher than what you would like to see from a guy like Cueto, but his last 3 starts, no home runs allowed, only 2 walks allowed, and he's been able to give the White Sox some necessary innings. His last start, he struggled in the first inning and looked like, this could be an early exit for Cueto. He sharpened it up and went 8 innings of 1 earned run ball against the Houston Astros. The White Sox offense found some runs late against the Astros and won that game 4-2 in the end. But, Cueto has been one of the bright spots for an otherwise pretty disappointing year for Chicago White Sox starters. I mean, you look at Lucas Giolito, he has struggled all season long. So I think bringing in Cueto, really good decision for Chicago this year. On the other side, Shane Bieber is more of a power pitcher. He has some issues with the home run ball in his career, but 140 strikeouts is top 20 in the league right now. And 138.2 innings pitched. A 1.10 whip is top 25 right now in the league, a 3.18 ERA. So he's pitching well this season. His last start against the Blue Jays, very, very strong. 7 innings, 2 earned, 6 strikeouts. And in his last 4 outings, the Guardians have won all 4 of those games. Not against the toughest of lineups each start, but he is still pitching very well for Cleveland. I think this matchup just benefits the Guardians just a little bit more. We know Cleveland doesn't strike out much at the plate, against right-handed pitching especially. They get on base. Their team OPS has been near the top of the league against righties all season long. So if Cueto's not able to miss those bats, the ball is going to be put in play almost every single at bat, in my opinion, and that's where I get a little bit worried as Shane Bieber's able to miss some bats, get out of jams with those strikeouts when he needs to. I trust the Guardians lineup just a little bit more in this particular matchup, and I do think they're going to win this game at home. So give me the Cleveland Guardians here on the money line. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Justin Dunn and Tyler Beede are your projected starters. I got to take the over in this game. I don't trust either starting pitcher. I don't trust either bullpen as well. And usually when you see two weaker teams play against each other, the offense is usually the first thing that you'll see. And, Cincinnati, this game's not going to be in Cincinnati, so it would benefit if it was at a more of a hitter-friendly ballpark. But, Justin Dunn's got an ERA above 8 in his first 2 starts at the major league level. I think the Pirates can tee off against him, and he's given up 4 home runs in his first 2 outings, only about 8 1/3 innings pitched. So I don't trust him here. I think both teams get on the board early and often. Give me the over in this Reds-Pirates game. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Mitch White and Garrett Cole are your projected starters. The Yankees have been a big disappointment here in the second half of the year, and I don't blame you if you don't want to take them in this spot, as they have just not looked good at all against right-handed pitching, especially their team OPS, now one of the worst in the league in the last month against righties. But I still think Garrett Cole is the far better option when compared to Mitch White, especially when you look at the advanced numbers, the FIP and the XFIP. He has much better stats. And, Mitch White hasn't been the sharpest with his new club in Toronto. He's given up 4 earned runs in his first 8 1/3 innings with his new team. Doesn't really pitch too deep into games. Doesn't really strike out a lot of guys. Had some issues with the walks as well. So at Yankee Stadium, a young pitcher here, I just don't really love his chances. I'm going to take the New York Yankees, but like I said, I wouldn't blame you if you look the other way for this game, as the Yankees have not been very trustworthy in August or July. In our next matchup, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Minnesota Twins. Glenn Otto and Chris Archer are your starters, and I think we're going to see offense from both teams here, just like that Reds-Pirates game. 2 starting pitchers I do not have any trust in the world with, and 2 lineups that have shown that they can put up some crooked numbers, especially the Minnesota Twins. I think the Twins get to Otto early and often here, and this Rangers bullpen, one of the worst in the league in terms of projected WAR, and they also have a lot of injuries in that pen to worry about. When you look at the Twins offensively, they're in the top 15 in team OPS against righties in the last month, just outside the top 15 in isolated power, but they don't strike out much at the plate. They've got a guy in Luis Arias that's leading the league in batting average this year. I think they get to Otto here. And on the other side, Chris Archer, his ERA is now above 4 after being below 4 for quite some time this year. He gives up a good amount of base hits, earned runs, not as many home runs as I would expect, as his barrel percentage is pretty low. So he is susceptible to the home run ball, hasn't gotten burnt by it yet, but the walks are the biggest thing for him. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, only 71 Ks in 82 innings, but 41 walks. So basically a walk every other inning. And he's lost each of the last 5 starts that Archer's had. The Twins have lost all 5 of those games. So I don't trust him here. I think both teams get on the board early. Give me the over in the Rangers-Twins. We have a World Series rematch, Game 2 of this series. The Braves and the Astros. Christian Javier and Spencer Strider are the starters. This game on Fox at 7:15 Eastern. And, sometimes it is important to be a game watcher and to kind of scout how these teams play and how these pitchers look on the mound. And I will say, I watched the last start for Christian Javier against the Oakland Athletics. He went 6 innings, he had 6 strikeouts, and didn't give up an earned run. But I think that stat line is a little bit misleading. If you watch that outing, he gave up a lot of fly balls. It was an 11-2 fly ball to ground ball ratio. And in the month of August, a 37-10 fly ball to ground ball ratio. For a guy that gives up a lot of home runs, that's not really what you want to see. And he's faced 3 lineups that haven't been the most powerful in the A's, the Guardians, and the Red Sox. So now you're facing Atlanta, one of the more home run hitting teams in the National League this year. That's where I get concerned. The Braves are number 3 in isolated power in the last month against righties. I think they can hit 1 or more, maybe even 2 or more home runs against Javier in this spot. And with how well Spencer Strider has pitched this season and how poor the Astros have done against right-handed pitching in the last month, I got to take the Atlanta Braves here on the money line, the home team. Give me the Bravos on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Oakland Athletics. James Caprillion and Logan Gilbert as your starters. Now, there's no official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change. But if these are the starting pitchers, you look at James Caprillion, he hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs in a single start since June 15th. He has been razor sharp for Oakland, and that includes 2 starts against these Mariners, where he went a combined 11 1/3, giving up only 3 earned runs with 11 strikeouts. So pretty impressive stuff from Caprillion. I have to say I was pretty critical of him in the beginning of the year, but he's definitely contributing for this Oakland A's rotation, pretty weak rotation. On the other side, Logan Gilbert has struggled in his last 5 starts. The Mariners have lost 4 of those 5 games. He gave up 3 earned runs and 4 walks in his most recent outing against the Rangers. He was miserable against the Yankees in the back-to-back starts he faced them in, and I just really can't trust him with the Oakland A's numbers against righties being pretty good offensively. I'm going to take the home team here in Oakland plus the 1.5, and I'll sprinkle a little bit on the money line as well. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Colorado Rockies. We're going to see Ryan Feltner and Alex Cobb as your starters. Now, Ryan Feltner's xFIP is not bad. It's well below his current ERA at 6.39, but he is still not pitching very well in his most recent outings, giving up at least 1 homer in each of his last 3, walking a lot of batters, and not really striking out many guys. And at the beginning of the year, Feltner was able to miss some bats, and that's why his advanced numbers weren't too bad. But now he's only had 3 Ks in his last, or he's had 3 Ks or less in each of his last 5 starts. Some of that's because he doesn't go too deep into games, but he's gone at least 3 innings in each of those starts. So not what you want to see from a guy like Feltner. I think Cobb, he struggled quite a bit in his first start at Coors Field this year, but he was also pitching pretty poorly in general around that outing, and now he's pitching much better. He's missing some bats, and although he hasn't been good on the road, I still think he's more than good enough here for the Giants to win this game going away. So give me the San Francisco Giants laying the 1.5 runs, but not my favorite game on the board. Next up, we see Dakota Hudson and the St. Louis Cardinals taking on Madison Bumgarner and the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think both of these pitchers set up for quite a bit of an offensive showing for both of these lineups. I like the offense in here. Give me the over. Dakota Hudson giving up a good amount of walks, not really striking out a lot of guys, and giving up a good amount of base hits. He's also not pitching too deep into games, and although the late inning guys for the Cardinals in their bullpen, like Helsley and Gallegos and Cabrera, are pretty good and pretty reliable, I don't really trust the long relievers that St. Louis has. I think the Diamondbacks can do some damage against those guys. And Dakota Hudson, an ERA above 5 on the road, not pitching well away from Busch Stadium. On the other side, Madison Bumgarner has struggled continuously, it seems, and his ERA is now above 4.3. At home, he's had better numbers, but he is a lefty, and the Cardinals, we know, have crushed lefties from basically start to finish of this season, and Bumgarner's given up at least 4 earned runs in each of his last 4 starts against the Braves, Rockies, Pirates, and Giants. He's striking out more batters than he was at the beginning of the year, but giving up a lot more base hits and home runs as well, so I don't love that combination. Give me the over in this Cardinals D-backs matchup. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Washington Nationals. Josiah Gray and Joe Musgrove are your starters. We've seen in both of the series that the Nationals and Padres have had, the Nationals have been competitive in certain games. We saw them win outright in the first game of this set. So, to me, I think they can be competitive enough to at least cover on the plus 2.5 run line. You're getting a good price because the Padres are still minus 300 favorites here. I think Josiah Gray is numbers on the road, 5-1 with a 3.21 ERA now. He has struggled in night games this year, but his road starts have been good. His last start against the Cubs, he gave up 2 home runs, but he had 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. That's really, he's a power pitcher. He's got 137 Ks in 118 innings, but 31 home runs allowed. One of the more home run, I think he leads the league in home runs allowed. I'm not too sure of that number off the top of my head, but it's got to be him or Hunter Green in my opinion. But Josiah Gray, I think he's good enough here against the Padres offense that's been inconsistent. We've seen him put up double-digit runs with their new look lineup in Juan Soto and Josh Bell. We've also seen him get shut out a couple times. So I think Gray is good enough with Joe Musgrove currently struggling quite a bit. I think the Nationals can compete in this game. I'm going to take them plus the 2.5 runs here. And in our final game of the night, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. No official lineup for this one, but we should see Braxton Garrett and Dustin May as the starters. Dustin May making his long-awaited season debut. And Braxton Garrett, he's got a 3.67 ERA. He's coming off a nice shutout performance against the Braves through 6 innings, and he hasn't been too bad this year for Miami. He's got a 4.4 ERA on the road this year. I think the Dodgers could score 3 or 4 runs off of him, but the Marlins bullpen also hasn't been too bad this season. The Marlins offense hasn't done much of anything in the last 2 months or so, and Dustin May, he is a right-handed pitcher. The Marlins 28th in both team OPS and isolated power against righties in the last month. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I'm going to take the under in the Marlins-Dodgers game to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday, August 20th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. And don't forget that code AUG15, that's AUG15, to save 15% at checkout. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.